Okay, so we did Shalom Bayit on Pele Yoetz. Now he's going to speak about chinuch of children, right? The proper attitude towards children. Now everything that we're going to say is for sure easier said than done, right? But the point being is here is that at least we get the right perspective from the Torah's perspective, from the Chachamim's perspective of what would be the right way to raise children. And from there on we could slowly internalize and try to get to that level of being able to do whatever they tell us to do when it comes to raising children successfully. So it says, Ahavat abanim v'abanot. The first way he starts off is he speaks about the love that parents have for children. He says that parents love children, they love the children from nature. That it's within the parent's nature to love a child, right? Even animals love their own children. Even the most cruelest animals love their own children. So it's just internal within a person, because you feel like your child is an extension of yourself. There's an internal love, an internal connection that a person naturally has for his child. That's why HaKadosh Baruch Hu created people and created everything is like that. However, he says you have to make sure that the love that you have for your child doesn't cause you to ruin your child. Doesn't cause you to ruin your child. What does that mean? So here, the way he's going to explain it is really the way chinuch was, raising children, chinuch, right, was meant to be from Chazal, from the Chachamim, right? So we're going to speak it out, and then we're going to sort of explain why the Mechanchem today changed it a little bit and made it a little bit different, right? He says the love that we have for our children, we have to make sure that it doesn't ruin our children. How? He says many people, they don't give their children musar, they don't give their children tuchacha. They let their children do whatever they want. He says parents that let their children do whatever they want, and the only thing they do is just always nice to them, and they frown to them, and they let them get away with things. He says such an individual is ruining his children. Like Shlomo Melech says, Chosech shifto, if you remove the stick literally from your child, that means that you hate him. Why? Because every child needs to be mechunach, every child needs to be raised, every child needs parents to be involved with them. So it seems, at first glance, what he's saying over here is that it's important for parents to punish their children. That's what he seems to say. And it's important for parents not to let their children do whatever they want without punishing them. However, there are very fine lines in all of these things, as we'll read a little bit more, and then I'll explain. He says, but the main love that you have to have for your child is an internal love of a soul, internal pnimius dika love. So we find today that a lot of the mechanchem, a lot of the people that are involved in raising children, that they tell you when it comes to raising children, you shouldn't hit your children. But we find the other way in Chazal. Chachamim tell us that David HaMelech's children, they became the way they were because David HaMelech was never involved in giving them chinuch and never involved in giving them musar and being involved with them. So how do we find today that the mechanchem, and you ask anybody that's involved in raising children, they'll tell you, no, you're not supposed to hit your children. The difference is, when Chachamim told us that you have to patch your children and punish your children and train your children and raise your children, they meant people that could fully control themselves. Like the Gemara says, that even when a person wants to show anger or show seriousness in the house, it should only be from the outside. It shouldn't be something internal. You should show it on the outside just to make a point, but it shouldn't be something internal. Today, unfortunately, a lot of times when a child does something wrong, for example, if a person sees his child speaking Lashon Haram, right? This is something a person should train his child from day one already, not to speak Lashon Haram. Right? You shouldn't tell your child, who did this, who did that, tell me who did it, did he did it, did you see him do it? You're already training your child to say, he did it, he broke it, he did that one. You don't develop into your child this attribute already of speaking about people. And he says that in such an instance where you want to fix a child, for example, say if a child has a problem, that he doesn't speak the truth all the time, or a child has a problem that is very chutzpahdik, right? So such things you have to know, there's an issue, you have to fix it, but it has to be done in a way where you have to have a proper balance. You're right, you have to punish a child. You're right, you have to take things away from a child. You're right, you might have to patch a child. But you have to do it in a way where the child feels like it's coming from love. It doesn't feel like it's coming from hatred. You have to, for example, you come home and you want to teach a child something. Say he did something very not nice. He spoke very chutzpahdik today with his mother, and he was behaving very, very not nice. Right? Small children, already at a small age, you have to start training them. You can't let it internalize into them. Right? So then, how do you go about it? So you're right. You could take something away. You could try to explain it to them. But if it gets to a point where they do something extreme, you could give them a patch. But you always have to make sure afterwards, right, that you explain to them. Do you know why Abba punished you? Do you know why I took this away from you? Do you know why I gave you a patch? Do you know why? Why? The child will tell you, no, I don't know, or more this. Because a lot of times what he might do might be normal to him. He doesn't know how to discern so much yet. Right? So you have to explain to him, I punished you because you were behaving with chutzpah. I punished you because you were fighting with your sibling or with your friend, right? Or I patched you because you were behaving, way overboard. I think a child has to understand, you have to tell him that I do it because I love you and I don't want you to do the wrong thing. So a child has to understand that you're hitting him and you're punishing him because you love him and you want to become better. But if a child doesn't sense that, if a person is just hitting his child out of anger, a child does something that frustrates you, so you just react, and a child doesn't understand, he just thinks it's all anger and frustration, that's not going to develop a child positively. Such reactions won't give a child that positive growth that he needs in order to be able to grow up healthy emotionally. And therefore, when the Chachamim tell us that you have to give your children mustar in a way that will teach them their lesson, you have to punish them, it means that it has to be done with love. It has to be done with a certain balance. A child has to always understand what you're doing. And he says also what? You have to teach your children also a good self-esteem. Common issue we find is children, for some reason, parents for some reason, they put their children down sometimes, right? The child is not the smartest in school, right? Tell him, why you're not using your brain, you're lazy, you're not thinking, what's wrong with you? Pay attention, listen to your teacher. It's because you're like this, it's because you're like that. When you're constantly putting the child down, you're ruining his self-esteem, you're ruining his self-image. A child like that, people with a low self-esteem, they become very difficult not only to live with people like that, but they become very difficult even to live with themselves. People don't realize how dangerous and how critical it is to ruin a child's self-esteem. A child should never feel like he's being put down in everything he's doing in life, because then he's always going to second-guess himself. He's never going to have the proper confidence. He's always going to feel down. He's going to have many ups and downs. They become very defensive. They become very controlling. And every child will react differently if he will have that low self-esteem. People don't realize how important it is to develop a good self-esteem in a child. Right? To reinforce everything the child does, to reinforce it, say, you did a great job. You did good. This was excellent. This was amazing. You tried your best. Try a little bit harder next time if you could. Always make the child feel like he's good, he's positive, he's growing. You're making him grow, you're making him change. You're developing him in a way that he feels confident, he feels good about himself. Such a child will grow up healthy emotionally. He'll grow up, it'll be a different human being when he gets older. But if a child always feels like he's being put down, it's very detrimental to a child. Not only that, I'll tell you, the Ben Ish Chai has a mashal. Right, the Ben Ish Chai says that one time a father was walking with his son, and they saw like a whole wheat field, right? And in this wheat field, they saw stalks that were very strong standing up, and they saw wheat stalks that were very bent. So the son asked the father, he says, why is it that these are standing up strong and these are bent? He told him the ones that are bent are dying. So the father tells him no. He says the ones that are full are bent. He says the ones that are empty are the ones that are sticking out. So the Ben Ish Chai says people are the same way. When people are full, when people are satisfied, when people have a good self-esteem, when people are shalem within themselves, right? They're humble. They're not looking for attention. When people feel empty, those are the people that are looking for attention. When people have a low self-esteem and they don't feel accomplished within themselves, they don't feel sure within themselves, they're always the people that are looking to stand out, looking to be known, looking to be popular, always looking to be noticed in everything that they do. Why? Because they're always looking for attention. Where is that coming from? Validation. Where is that coming from? It's coming from low self-esteem. They don't have a proper pnimiut. They don't have themselves proper developed. And it's very detrimental. Even in a marriage, when somebody with a low self-esteem grows up and he gets married, if a person has a very low self-esteem, they become very defensive, they become very negative, they become hard to talk to. It's very it destroys a child for the rest of his life. People don't realize that. They think that you just put the child down. If you bring the child, somebody once told me that he put the child down, right? Even if the child does good, he tells him, you could have done better. I tell him, why are you doing that? He tells me, I don't want him to be arrogant. I said, you're not making him arrogant. You're ruining his self-esteem. You're ruining the child who he is, right? It's not a matter. It's better that the child will have a great self-esteem and feel good about himself, and life will bring him to a balance, than make him feel low for the rest of his life, and he'll never be able to keep a balance within himself. Right, so it's very important when it comes to chinuch to teach your child to love himself. A person must love himself. When a person loves himself, it'll be easier for that person to love other people. It'll be easier for people to love other people. And therefore, Mele says that a person has to make sure that when he's with his children, don't let your children get away with things also. If a child speaks Lashon Hara, right away bring him to the table. Talk to him, right? Shlomo, tell him, this is not how we speak. You speak nicely, you don't degrade people, you speak positively about people, right? It's degrading when you're sitting with somebody and he's degrading other people. It's very belittling. You don't want to be around those type of people. Why? Because today he's going to speak about him, tomorrow he's going to speak about you, and so on and so forth. Such people, right? It's not a good quality in a person to besides the fact that Isser of Lashon Hara, which is horrible, right? They're just such a midah is a horrible midah, right? And therefore, mainly you have to make sure that you teach your children from step A. Already from they're 2-3 years old, not when they're 10-15 years old, right? Because once a child already gets older, whatever nature is developed inside of him is very hard to change, right? The Shlomo Melech says, raise a child from when he's young, and what you put into him from when he's young is going to stay with him for the rest of his life. There's certain nature that a person develops when he's young that always stays with him. He says that what? He says also children when they're younger, right? They have a very strong Yetzer Hara, we'll call it. They have a very strong Yetzer Hara. Children don't have Yetzer Hara Tov. It's Kol Kul Yetzer Hara. You look at a child, it's fully a Yetzer Hara. He has no Yetzer Hara Tov, right? You have to be careful. He says that the father shouldn't be cruel to his children. Shouldn't hit him out of anger. Shouldn't hit him out of cruelty. Shouldn't hit him just to punish him. Shouldn't do too much above what he really should be getting in that momentum. You shouldn't just let out your frustration on your children. That's the worst thing you could do, because that destroys the child completely, he says. Frustration should never be let out on your children. If you're frustrated, get yourself a punching bag, I don't know, go into the garage, or sit down, read a sefer, calm yourself down sometimes. Don't let it out on the people around you. Right, B'rak B'nachat. He says you have to make sure that even when you punish your children, it should be done in a gentle fashion. That's in a way that's with mercy. It shouldn't just be done so on and so, like that. As the child gets older, he says, it's easier already. As the child gets older, 18, 19, 17, they're already at those ages, you can't hit a child. You're going to hit a child, 18-year-old, you're going to hit an 18-year-old, right? But he says if a person hits a child when he's older, right, he's already over an Isser also. Why? Because if you know your child's at that age that if you hit him, he's going to react negatively and he's going to want to retaliate, so you're over an Isser Doraita also. If you know that you're going to hit your child and he's already at that age where he's going to retaliate and he's going to react and he might want to hit you back or something like that, right? He said at such an age, if you would hit your child, you'd be over an Isser Doraita of Vifnei Iver Lo Titen Mechshol, because you're causing him to falter in the sin. Also, a father needs to be careful that he should also give the child responsibilities that he could fulfill in order to become the mitzvah of Kivur Avayim as well. Don't put your children in difficult situations where they're going to be over the Isser of Kivur Avayim. And when a child gets a little bit older, already you have to start talking to him pleasantly, start talking nicely. Already you can't treat him the way he was when he was younger, right? Also, he says you have to be very careful with children. Do not embarrass children in front of other people. Do not embarrass children in front of other people. Sometimes a person might feel like children, everybody's small, they don't really make a difference. You come to him in front of his friends, I don't know, he did something wrong, you pull him by his ear, you say something to him. Child feels embarrassed in public. When a child feels embarrassed in public, he develops a strong negativity towards the person that did it to him. It might not be visual and seen like this, but it's there, it's inside. It'll play itself out. Next time you'll ask him to do something or you want him to do something, he's always going to have that within him, and you don't see that it's really playing itself out in his personality towards you because of that one time he developed this negativity inside him for you. So you have to be careful that you don't embarrass your children. You think to yourself, he's small. Children understand already. And my child, he's 6 years old, right? My mother needs to take him to the bus stop soon because whatever. So he said, no, I don't want Safta, I don't want Babashka, whatever, to take me to the bus stop. So why not? It's embarrassing, right? 6 years old, he already understands your grandma. It's embarrassing, she's old lady, right? Right? But children already understand this concept. People don't realize children understand everything. They think they're small, they're not small. You can't embarrass your children in front of other people. You have to. What? In front of nobody. Right? The child should never be embarrassed in front of anybody, because then he's going to do it to somebody else also. If he's already raised within him to understand that you don't embarrass people, you don't say something negative about anybody in public, you have something to say, you take him quietly to his room and you tell him what you want to tell him quietly. He's going to become like that also. You have to teach him. We don't embarrass people publicly. You don't tell people things negative publicly. He becomes like that also. But if you're going to do it to him, he's going to do it to other people. He's going to do it to kids in class. He's going to do it to his siblings. Because you're giving him that image. He's going to do what you're doing. Therefore, a person needs to be very careful also. Shelo yishane leben habanim, right? Leben ben habanim. You should never ki kashe kishol kinan. It says jealousy is a very strong midah, and a person raising his children, he has to be very careful not to develop jealousy within the children. Right? You get your child something, get your child the other thing as well. You go buy one kid a birthday gift, buy the other kid the same present. Don't only get one without the other. You're going to get a kid a prize, you get the other kid a prize also. Right? Don't do one thing for one kid without the other kid, because they're going to develop jealousy for each other. And then that's what makes them wake up the next day and fight and scream and so on and so forth. That's really what happened yesterday. It creates jealousy within them and they react from it. We don't see it, but they react from it. Yeah. What? What? Jealousy, that's true, but if you at least try to treat them with a balance, they'll have much less jealousy for each other. They'll have much less jealousy for each other. If you give one and not the other, and you buy him a gift and not him, you buy him a new jacket and not him, and so on, they're always going to develop that within them. It's going to grow more, right? But if you always try to keep a balance.
Somebody's birthday, you cannot buy all the kids. It's his birthday. They need to understand that it's a birthday.
At a young age, or depends what age. Right? You should buy them all something. It doesn't have to be that necessarily the same thing, but they should all get something. They should all get something. Get everybody a gift, you can get him something a little bit bigger. But they shouldn't feel like, oh, he got it and we didn't get anything. Because at a certain age, they understand it, but it's also that they want it. Children can't accept it like we can. We understand that concept more, but a child that's 5, 6, 7, 8, I don't know how much they understand it. Maybe at 9, 10 years old, you're right. They could
understand it when it's going to come back around to them, when it's going to be their birthday. That's when they're going to understand.
But when they're a little bit older. But when they're small, I don't know how much they understand it. I think deep down inside it still bothers them a little bit. They don't understand this concept yet. Right? That it's his birthday, so he gets something and I don't get anything. They'll say, okay, but deep down inside it bothers them. You always have to get them something also. You don't want to create any resentment towards them. Right? Or you want to take one kid with you and you don't take the other kid with you and he wants to go. You have to also be careful when you do that. They have to understand. Right? Say today he'll go, tomorrow he'll go. You'll have turns. Right? But like you have to make them understand these things. You don't want them to develop this negativity for each other as well. You need to deal with every child differently. Every child will react differently. Every child is different. Every child likes different things. Right? The father needs to behave with every child based on what he is. If he is a child that's good in school, he's good in school. If this child's not so good in school, you teach him to do the best he can do, and you teach him to be good at things that he could do. You don't have to, there's no one size fits all with children. Every child is different. Every child needs different attention. Every child likes something else. Every child needs something else. Right? If a child is a B student in school, right? He's a B student in school. You could try to make him a little better, but if he's a B student in school, he's a B student in school. If a child is not so good in school, you could teach him to do whatever he can, but you have to see where the child's potential truly is. Right? You have to deal with every child differently. Right? It says, and if your child, you need to also make sure that when you have a relationship with your children, and you're dealing with your children, that you deal with them in a way that you don't cause them to sin towards you. And if your child sinned towards you, he said something not nice to you, or whatever it might be, right? You put him in a situation where he couldn't do it for you. For example, you know you're going to ask your child, can you please get me a cup of water? Right? And he's already 10, 11 years old, or 15, 16 years old, right? Let's say past bar mitzvah would be worse, right? And you know he's not going to get it for you. Tell him, go get it, right? But you know he's not going to get it for you. He's sitting on it, you know he's not going to get up. Don't put him in that position. Why? Because if he's not going to do it, he's going to get a sin. So don't put him in positions where you know he's going to be over kibbut avayim. And if he's going to be over kibbut avayim, he says you should mochel him right away, forgive him right away. Why? Because if you're going to be upset at him, the longer you're upset at him, the more he's going to get punished for it. Right? Yeah. Tough. There's another chapter. We'll stop here. We'll go to Halchot Shabbat. So we stopped last week. No, continue. We'll continue with Halchot Shabbat. We were left off last week at Peleoids. Right? Right? So it says like this. So we left off last week with Halchot Borer. Right? So it says over here also, if you have different drinks in the fridge. Remember Halchot Borer, you're separating one from the next? Say if you open up your fridge and you have a whole bunch of drinks in your fridge. Or say you have like a separate section in the fridge for all your drinks. And they're all there. And they're all there. Now you have a mixture over there. You have Pepsi, soda, I don't know, Coke, Sprite, all this other stuff. You have it all in a mixture over there. So what happens is, you're allowed to take out what you want from what you don't want. But what about if what you want is in the back? So you're allowed to move everything aside in order to be able to get to whatever you want. It's not considered like you are separating, but you have to make sure that when you take what you want, that you use it for that su'udah. Verstehst? You can't just decide now, look, all the drinks in the fridge are all together. Right? Let me rearrange them. I'm going to put this there, this there, this there, this that. You can't do that. Why? You're going to be involved in borer. Right? You have to make sure that you do it right next to the su'udah. And yeah, right? We need to say like we said until now, that when you do borer, when you're separating one thing from the next, it always has to be done for the meal that you are going to eat at that moment. Right? Now, so we discussed a lot of laws in borer. Now we're going to get into borer, not in clothing. There is borer in kalim. Utensils, spoons, knives, forks, shoes, clothes, socks, books, all these things are subject to the law of borer on a rabbinical level. Therefore, if a person wants to take a piece of clothing, or a person wants to take a sefer, he needs to take the one that he wants from the ones that he does not want also to use as well. We need to say, a person opens up his closet and he says, oh okay, which shirt do I want? Okay, I want this one. Right? You can take that one, but when he takes it out, he needs to put it on within an hour, we said. Right? You can't say, what am I going to wear tomorrow? It's Friday night, right? What am I going to wear tomorrow morning, right? So you take out this shirt, you take out this suit, you take out that tie, you take out this, right? That you can't do. Because you're taking it out now for tomorrow, it's too big of a gap, and you're separating one thing from the next. We said when you separate, it has to be done for immediate use and not for too much of a time gap, not more than an hour, right? מותר לחפש בעיקרת, אוקיי. ספרים מועדים מדף שבארון של ספרים ששת מרקודים ונכון, אוקיי. Now, you have a lot of sefarim piled up over here. You have a lot of books everywhere and you want to put them away, right? You can't say, okay, I'm going to organize all the Gemarot, I'm going to organize all this, I'm going to organize all that, and I'm going to put everything back, organize everything in there. Right? You can't do that. Why? Because when you're organizing, you're separating one thing from the next. The whole pile of books. You're starting to separate everything one from the next and stop putting it away. That's considered borer. You're also separating one thing from the next. You're taking this, you're taking that, you're taking this, you're putting everything away. That's borer. Yeah. How are you supposed to do it? How are you supposed to do it? Right? You're supposed to take all the books as is, bring them next to the bookshelf. Take the book, whatever book comes in your hand, put it down. Take the book, whatever comes in your hand, take it out. Don't sort it all out. Just whatever comes into your hand, you can put back. Is that what I mean? So don't sort it all out. When you're sorting, it's worse. Now, laundry. Right? Laundry. Right? You want to go and start? You say you have a whole laundry basket, you forgot to put it away Erev Shabbat. Now, it was on the bed. So you want to start separating everything. This clothing goes here, this clothing goes here, this clothing goes here. You can't do that. You can't now start folding everything and separating everything in order to be able to put it away. Now you could put things away, whatever. If you have a shirt here, you could just put that away. Just say they got put it, but to organize everything and then to put it away, you're not allowed to do that. Right? That would be an Isid Rabbanan of Borer. Okay, now there's a machlok in the poskim. If I have to take a fruit or I take a vegetable that is dirty and I want to wash it and I want to rinse it, is there an act of borer here? So, what? Yeah, so the poskim say that it's mutar. There are some that say that not, but the main poskim say it's mutar. You're allowed to take something and rinse it and wash it and so on and so forth, right? Now, a peeler, right? We discussed the peeler. I think we said a peeler is mutar. Then you would have a water filter. Are you allowed to use a water filter on Shabbat? Water filter.
Yeah, you're taking what you want and you're drinking it.
Yeah, but you're filtering. I have a question for you. Huh? And borer, but that's only when you're taking yavish out of lach. Here you're separating the shimarim and so on and so forth. For example, if I take wine, I just made it fresh and it has a lot of stuff inside there. You know, it has all the pieces inside there. So what do I want to do? I want to put like a little cloth on top. This wire is not so long, right? I want to put a little cloth on top, and I want to take it, and while the cloth is on top, I want to pour out all the wine. I want all the wine to come out, and I want all the stuff to be left inside. What? That's borer. You're separating. You're taking, that's what borer is, and it also, when you're taking it, your mom is separating one entity from the next. You want to separate two different entities here, right? So that's considered borer, right? Or I want to take water that's not so clean, and I want to take a cloth, put it on top, and filter it out, right? You're separating whatever's in there to stay behind and to get stuck on a cloth, whatever, and you want to separate the water. That is an act of borer. So what about water faucets, drinking? So really like this. The gather of the halakha is, if the majority of the world would drink the water as is, not filtered, then even if you want it filtered, right? Even if you want it filtered, so it would still be a little bit of an issue. But if you would want it filtered and everybody would drink it not filtered, then that's okay. It's okay. Meaning to say, we don't mitchashev by you so much. If everybody doesn't care if it's filtered, everybody will drink it as is. You want it filtered, so it's not considered filtering. That's just like an extra filter. So I'm saying it's like an extra filter. But if the majority of the people would not drink the water filtered, not filtered, you ask anybody, would you drink the water you're not filtered? Tell you no. And now you want to filter, even though you would drink it unfiltered, but you want to filter it, that's a problem. We need to say, if the majority of people would not drink this water not filtered, but you tell yourself, listen, it's filtered water, the majority of people won't drink it unfiltered, but I don't care if it's filtered or not. So we don't care if you care or not. Since the majority of people would not drink it unfiltered, you cannot filter the water. But what? The water in the sink that comes in here is already filtered before it comes into the sink. All the water that comes into your tap water is already filtered when it comes to this halacha. We need to say that once something is filtered, to extra filter it is already not a question of borer, right? It's already filtered, right? So here, the water that's coming in to the sink is already filtered. Therefore, you're filtering. It's like extra filtering it. That's one way of looking at it. But I don't know if that's true. Would most people drink water unfiltered? Shlomo, would you drink water unfiltered? Tap water.
I would, but the majority wouldn't.
You would drink water unfiltered? Yeah, you would drink it?
I would drink from the sink. New York has the cleanest water in the country, I think.
Yeah? So if majority of people would drink the water from the sink without it being filtered, then you're right, you wouldn't have a problem putting it on another filter. But if you'd be in a place not like that, you would have a problem. So, but l'maaseh, l'halacha, a lot of poskim are lenient in New York that you're allowed to use the water filter. And therefore, if people want to use the water filter to drink, with the water filter, it's fine. Somebody asked me a rather interesting question, not to do with filtering. He said that there's a certain device they put next to your sink, and it makes hot water instantly. Just turn it, like instant hot water. That you're not allowed to do that.
What do you mean, instant hot water? You have the sink that has hot water. You just turn the nozzle.
So that's one way of doing it. They have another item that's on the side. It's not an urn. It's connected to a faucet. You know, like you have like a separate little faucet, a thin one for filtered water. They have one like that for hot water.
Oh.
And as soon as you press the button, it makes the water hot immediately. So that you're not allowed to use.
But just to make it hot, not to filter it, or filtered hot.
It does everything. Yeah, everything at once. It's filtered hot water.
But hot water in general, you're not allowed to turn on Shabbat.
No, you're not allowed to turn on Shabbat. Yeah. Why? Because as soon as you turn on the hot water, the cold water enters the tank and cooks it.
Yeah.
Right? So you're not allowed to turn it on. Right? So, now, what about if a person has animals? A person has animals and he needs to feed his animals. Say I'm eating a piece of meat or I'm eating chicken and I have bones, right? I have bones in front of me. So I have a chicken bone over here. So if the chicken bone is here, I can't take out the chicken bone, put it on the side of the table, right? Because I'm separating the chicken bone from the chicken, that's considered separating. I can only eat the chicken and I can leave the bone behind. But for me to take out the chicken bone to put it aside, I'm not allowed to do that. I can take out the chicken bone if there's a little something in it and eat it, or suck on the juice inside of it if people eat it and there's really juice inside of it, right? Then I'm allowed to do that. But if it's just a chicken bone I'm taking out and putting on the side, or a meat bone I'm taking and putting on the side, you're not allowed to do that, right? Say for example, when would this be common? If you have, if you have children, you want to give them food, and you want to take out the bones. You take the chicken, you take out all the bones, you put it aside, and then you crush the chicken. You gotta be careful. You can't do that. No, you cannot do that. But however, if I'm taking out a bone and I have a dog in front of me, I'm giving it to him, that's okay. So I'm not separating what I don't want from what I do want, because right now I'm taking out the bone, I have an obligation to feed my dog, I'm feeding my dog. Right? You can't feed animals that don't belong to you on Shabbat. Right? But your own personal animals you could feed. Right? So therefore you're allowed to take out the bone and give it to your animal. But if you don't have an animal to give it to, then you can't do it. You just need to eat the chicken and the bone, leave it there. Right? You could eat the bone there, leave it behind. Right? Now, officially, we're done with Hilchot Borer of separating. I just want to get everything clear and straight to the point, just for everybody to have all the main rules of what they're allowed to do and not allowed to do on Shabbat. I don't want to get into now all the details. Now, we'll just start the next set of halachot that I wanted to learn, which is sichita, squeezing fruits. Squeezing fruits on Shabbat, right? So there's two fruits that are an issa d'oraita to squeeze on Shabbat. What's that? Grapes and olives. Say right now I have grapes. I like grapes, right? I want to take the grapes and I want to squeeze them. And I want to squeeze it into a cup to make grape juice. Am I allowed to do that? Say I forgot to buy grape juice for the kids, but I have a lot of grapes. Just want to squeeze all the grapes into a cup and drink it. I can't do that. Why? Squeezing a grape into a cup on Shabbat is an issa d'oraita, because grapes, they're there for wine, they're there for grape juice, and therefore they're meant to separate the juice from the actual fruit. There, if you would squeeze it, you'd be over an issa d'oraita, the oraita of squeezing the grape into a cup. Olives also, olives are not realistic. If you take an olive, you can't squeeze an olive. The natural ones, you can't squeeze an olive. There's nothing that squeeze. Right? They're very hard. But all other fruits, if these fruits in the world are known to make fruit juice out of them, right, you're not allowed to squeeze them on the Rabbanan level. For example, I have oranges, right? I want right now fresh orange juice in the morning. I take the orange juice, I squeeze it, I squeeze it into a cup to drink the fresh oranges. That's an issa to do on Shabbat. It's issa d'Rabbanan, right? Issa d'Rabbanan. However, things that nobody makes juice out of and it's not the norm to make juice out of, for example, watermelon, right? If I take watermelon and I squeeze watermelon, squeeze all the juice out of it, people don't drink watermelon juice. There's no, watermelon is not something that they make juice from, right? So therefore, it's not a normal thing that's very, right? So therefore, if I would squeeze the watermelon, that would be okay. But if I would squeeze things that there's juices from, like oranges, or somehow if I'd be able to get the apple juice out of the apple, that would also be a problem, right? Or like all these different types of fruits that you could squeeze out the juice from, that would be asur to squeeze out. Yes, you're not allowed to squeeze out these fruits that we mentioned into a cup or into a drink. But when you're squeezing an orange into a salad, that's okay. Why? Because what's the problem of squeezing the orange juice out? I'm taking food and I'm separating the liquid from the food, right? So that's like you're being pharik. You're taking apart one entity from the next entity, right? And you're taking the liquid out of the solid. By squeezing it, that's considered an issa of schita. But if I'm separating the entity from within this orange onto a food, so we look at it as if I'm separating the food entity into a food entity. So it becomes like one big food entity. I'm not taking a food and making it to a drink. I'm taking a food and I'm making it into a part of another food entity. It's not considered like you're being mefarek. Right? That's the main idea over here. We'll stop over here. No, a lot of people here are in their own world for now.